Yeah, video on YouTube can really be evergreen. I have no doubt in my mind that my Instagram following is as large as it is because I have said on enough of my videos, hey, are you following us over on Instagram? YouTube is just so powerful when it comes to evergreen. And yes, it is a search engine, but and so it shows up on Google when you search for sure, and your videos will show up when people search for things on YouTube. So YouTube, unlike any other platform, has an incentive to just serve you anything and everything related to that thing, regardless of when it actually happened. So when that video was created, whereas other platforms are based on fresh content. YouTube is not based entirely on fresh content. So they will serve up your videos from 2 years, 10 years ago. How many times have you searched on YouTube and you found a video that was 5, 10 years old as one of the top things? And then your video could show up right after that video for the next thing for a person to watch. So that's why I think YouTube is so incredibly powerful when it comes to deciding where you want to start creating content.
Well, hey friends, welcome back to another episode of the Heather Sager Show. I am super thrilled about today's episode because I have my good friend Tasha Cochran on from One Big Happy Life. We're talking about YouTube, which selfishly speaking, I'm really excited to talk about this because this is an area I have not explored much. So Tasha, welcome to the show.
Hey, Heather, thank you so much for having me. And I'm really excited to chat all things YouTube.
All things YouTube. And I think, a lot of people who listen to the show, most people listen because they have some kind of interest in growing their skills in speaking, but we have a lot of service providers and coaches who are just really more interested in the online business. And it's funny, looking back, nearing 80 episodes when this airs, we've never talked about YouTube. And it's an incredible stage for people to speak on and share their message. But I think the video thing and the way that YouTube gets so much like street cred for it being such a big search engine, I think it's a little intimidating for people. So I'm excited to break it down today. But before we go into that, let's talk a little bit about you and your business, because you have an incredible YouTube channel. And so why don't you share a little bit about One Big Happy Life and what your business is and what you and your team do?
Sure. So with One Big Happy Life, we are all about helping people create lives that they absolutely love while also building wealth along the way. So we teach on building wealth, personal finance, financial management, but also lifestyle design, because we believe that you shouldn't be making financial decisions separately from your life decisions, and you should be using your money to facilitate your best version of your life. And also, when we have issues in our lives, we typically turn to money to solve them, which then creates money problems. So we create that sort of holistic lifestyle design and wealth building brand where we share tips with people to help them really transform their lives.
I love this. And you and your partner, Joseph, you guys do a lot together on YouTube. Like, I love watching the two of you in interviews. Side note, I'm going to link to a couple of my favorite YouTube episodes that you guys talk about in the show notes. I love how you guys each have a different perspective. You talk very transparently around your own personal financial life to pave the way for your audience. So it's not about, a lot of financial people talk about, I don't know, these inflated figures and talk theory. You guys actually showcase and share your numbers, which was that part of your strategy from the beginning, just to open book your life?
Yeah, absolutely. Because in personal finance, first of all, it's like you mentioned, often very standoffish. The people who are giving this financial advice or information, they're not sharing what their own lives look like. They're not sharing how they're making real world decisions. It's so easy to tell someone, well, just don't live your life and go ahead and pay off all your debt. But that person doesn't have to live that life. So what we wanted to do was show people that money can be easy, that it can be fun, that it can be joyful, that you don't need to be in a rush to reach your financial goals, that you can just thrive in your daily life and still build wealth along the way. So we really wanted to show them, not just teach them the financial principles, but show them in action in a real life, real world family. Because again, you're getting this financial information, but it's like, do you actually want to live that life? What does that life look like? What does it feel like? Well, with us, you can see what the life looks like and feels like. And it also helps take a lot of the stigma away from talking about finances, and also especially having debt, because we have loads of debt. Don't have a problem with it. Happy to share it and ready to take all the shame away from any of these finance conversations.
I love the fact that you said, like, don't be in a rush to hit your financial goals, or don't be in a rush. I think, especially in the world we live in, when we can see so many things flashed in our faces, literally on social media all the time, it's easy to get this FOMO factor that we're all wanting things and we want them right now. Everything is on demand, get it now, overnight shipping, like instant download. There's this instant thing that we put on our goals. And I love the fact that when you talk, I mean, the whole name of your brand around One Big Happy Life, it is fully inclusive. You share your lives both on YouTube, but also the behind the scenes on Instagram stories. So just side note plug, be sure you're following Tasha on Instagram, because she's got really good Instagram stories where you can actually do the crossover of kind of behind the scenes of YouTube and all the other things that you guys do. But let's go back a bit, because I want to break it down. So for those listening who are thinking about exploring YouTube, I hear a lot of people go, well, just repurpose stuff on YouTube and just expand and throw it on there. And I don't know that it's actually that easy. So selfishly speaking, I know YouTube is one of those areas that I want to venture more into in 2021. So tell us a little bit about how you got started with YouTube, why you chose that platform, and then we'll get into some of the like specifics around what other people might want to think about.
So what's really interesting about my journey is that I chose to just start making videos on YouTube. I didn't choose to start a business. I didn't see myself as an online entrepreneur. In fact, I actually really hated social media, didn't have an Instagram account, barely posted on my personal Facebook page, and was definitely one of those people that if I have not met you in person, we will not be Facebook friends. So that was me. When I decided to start making,
I still feel that totally.
and I still do too, even though now I do so much networking in the online business space.
Yeah.
I'm still like, if we've never actually met or connected in a significant way, do not friend me. I don't want DMs about your program. Like, I just don't. But so I started YouTube to make videos on YouTube. I was just doing it for fun. It really came about because back in 2013, I decided to cut off all of my relaxed hair and go natural. So just wear my natural curls versus my chemically straightened hair, because my daughter was having just like a identity crisis around her curly hair and no one else around her having curly hair. So I went on YouTube to figure out how to do this, because I had had chemically straightened hair since I was 5 years old. So I had no idea how to handle natural curly hair, how to even transition from relaxed to natural. So naturally, as I go on YouTube and I learn from the YouTube videos, I said, well, you know what? I'll just throw my video up there, me cutting off my hair to pay it forward, because I was inspired by all of these videos. So I'll just throw mine up there. Well, fast forward 3 years later, I was working in a job that I absolutely hated, searching for a new job. I'm a banking and finance attorney, by the way. So searching for a new job. And Joseph's like, look, you need a passion project. You need something to take your mind off of this, because I was miserable and making him miserable too. Well, at that same time, right around that time, I got $100 check from YouTube, because that one video I had made years ago was amassing $5 here and there. And it finally reached the $100 payout threshold. And so I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'll just start making YouTube videos. So if you look at those early videos, you'll see a couple more hair videos, because now my hair had grown out significantly over the course of those 3 years. You will also see job hunt videos, because that's how much I didn't give an F. Like, I was so mad at that job, not the job itself, but the people that I was working for, that I completely documented my job hunt on YouTube while I was still working there. And I secured my dream job with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, but I discovered I loved making videos. So the wonderful thing about my meandering approach to starting on YouTube was that I didn't have any intentions or expectations behind it. I let myself do whatever I felt like doing. So I made videos about hair. I made videos about money. I made videos about the spicy noodle challenge and family vlogs. We just did it for fun. and a business grew out of that. So then we started to be more intentional about the things that we were creating.
Okay, I had never heard that full story from you before. You and I know each other now for a year and a half, and
Mhm.
I've never heard that story. I didn't realize your first video was for your daughter. I think
Mhm.
that is, oh, that's incredible. Side note, that makes me think about uh, that bond between mom and daughter, and making that be something that other people can think about. I mean, that's incredible. And the fact that there was no like strategy or intention or mission for it. I love that. I actually think that's how most good things start. So thank you for sharing that. I'm curious, at what point in time so you got that check for $100, like, which sounds so funny because it's such a small dollar amount, but also that's
Mhm.
huge. $100 to get paid for a video online. How did you make the shift? Because you were in that other job, the second job that you got. How did you finally make the decision to say, you know what, I'm going to go full time in this business, making YouTube videos, but also doing a variety of other things?
Well, I made the decision that One Big Happy Life was going to become a company. And I had to decide what that company looked like. What kind of company was I building? So initially, because I was just doing YouTube for fun, I had defaulted to a media company slash publisher slash influencer style model that's really based on volume. So getting a lot of people to consume your free content so that you're paid using advertising, because YouTube will display advertising before your videos and during your videos and on your videos, and you'll get a small portion of that revenue. And also some amount of affiliate revenue by recommending products people can click through, go to Amazon, that kind of thing. And I just realized that that was a lot of work. By nature, I personally don't love being the center of attention and striving and feeling like I need to gather a whole big group of people to watch me. That is not what lights me up. I like creating meaningful, valuable content that's changing people's lives. And that's what I enjoy. And so with YouTube, oftentimes those two things might conflict, where you feel tempted to go with trends and do things for fun versus going with the things that feel meaningful to you that you want to talk about. So for me, I chose to go for a business where I could create meaningful topics and create a company that was near and dear to my own heart that helped people change their lives. And so I had to offer my own programs and services in order to make enough money to justify leaving my banking and finance attorney career, which I loved, so that I could jump all in my business. Because for me, finances are important. The lifestyle that I want to live is important. And so the work that I do is important, but it's got to also facilitate that life. So basically, I had to grow a business that was going to pay me what I needed to be paid to feel like I was comfortable transitioning from my career. So that's exactly what I did. I thought about what programs I wanted to offer. I thought about what specific areas in people's lives I wanted to help them transform. And I built my business around that.
So for you, is YouTube your primary, we'll use the marketing term, lead generation tool? Is that where most of your like new traffic, whether it's email list subscribers or social media followers, is that where most of it comes from?
Yes, yes, 100%. And YouTube is incredibly powerful for that. So even as we are looking to branch out into other areas, I have started an Instagram account, which you mentioned, but I don't post on it that often. Our YouTube is still definitely our primary platform, but we're looking to grow into the other platforms as well. Though maybe not Clubhouse just yet. I just can't.
So thinking about, I think this is one of those interesting stories that we all have to think about as entrepreneurs. We stumble into doing the thing we do, we figure it out, and then we go back and teach people. If we had to do it again, what would we do? So I'm curious, you had started with YouTube with low expectations for yourself, right? It wasn't a business. You were just kind of tinkering, having some fun, and then you got serious about it. If anyone's listening right now, they most likely already have a business. What are some recommendations you make for how an existing business owner who has objectives, they have goals, but I would imagine they can't put that big of pressure on themselves starting with YouTube. How do you navigate that conversation around how somebody expands to using YouTube without having a lot of that pressure to get results right away?
Well, I think the great thing about YouTube and video is just how easy it is to repurpose.
Yeah.
And I really think too that people naturally most people don't have a problem talking through a thing, right? Because we are so used to talking. And so one of the things that I love about my YouTube videos is that I can bullet out a thing, a topic, and let's say there are 5 bullet points that I want to cover, and I can sit there and I can record a YouTube video, let's say over the course of an hour, because you don't have to, you can start and stop when you're shooting videos. I think people forget this. YouTube videos are not live unless you don't want them to be. So you can take your time and say things the right way. And then once you have that video, you can hand it off to an editor. The editor will clean it all up for you. You can hand off that, put that video on YouTube, and then hand it off to your team to repurpose into a blog post, into snippets on Instagram, into posts on Facebook, pull quotes from it because you were actually speaking and you probably said something really amazing that's very quotable. So I think people really underestimate just how useful it can be to that's a bit of a longer form piece of content that's really easy to repurpose across platforms. You can also strip the audio and turn it into a podcast. So that's why I love starting with pre-recorded video as your primary piece of content versus starting with, say, a long form or written piece of content.
I totally agree with this. And I think it comes down, people have different comfort zones, right? So when you talk about being able to record a video and chop it down, I laugh because for me, I'm like, I like the live best because okay, this is a weird tangent, but I don't speak perfectly when I talk. I word flub. I don't use the best, most smart words. My sentences aren't even grammatically correct, but I rely on my delivery. Like we were talking about this earlier before we record. My hand gestures are crazy. My pace is crazy. I'm kind of all over the map. I bring a different level of energy. And for me, that's reliant on live video. If anyone were ever read a transcript, which by the way, I have those in the show notes, but the transcripts of my shows are horrible because it's not like full constructed sentences. So that's, I think, been my biggest block mentally with YouTube is I'm going to say it. I don't feel that I'm polished enough for YouTube. So let's dive into that because I actually think, if I remember correctly from our work together, for you, it's been a little bit of the opposite of that journey, right? Unpack that a little bit for me. Tell me your perspective on that.
Well, so first of all, I think it's important to recognize that you get better at things over time if you choose to. It's okay to say, well, this is the way I speak, and to show up authentically as yourself. I think YouTube is a platform that people expect that they need to be more polished than they actually are, but there is room for a wide variety of content creators. So perfect example, our YouTube videos, because especially the videos when it's Joseph and me. I never get that. Yes, Joseph and me, where it's me. Joseph and me. There we go. Joseph and I can play off of each other. When one person is talking, the other person is thinking. And so we will have 15-minute videos with one cut because that was all we needed, or no cuts even. And that's great. But you know what we don't have? We don't have lots of fancy B-roll shots coming in from all over the place. We don't have like call outs and graphics flying in all over the place. That was a decision that we made because I'm like, look, that takes too much work. I'm not doing that. And I don't think the ROI is there for that extra bit of, quote unquote polish. And guess what? 200,000 subscribers later, 17 million views later, turns out people don't care. So
we're not going to breeze right over that. 200,000 subscribers and 17 million views. Tasha knows what she's talking about.
Yeah, I think that we put too much pressure on ourselves to show up in a certain way. I say show up the way that you are. If you look at our old videos, I'm way better on YouTube than I used to be. And I'm pretty good right now on YouTube, but I also experience what you mentioned, Heather, which is that when we try to do snippets, I'm like, wait a minute, we didn't actually introduce that properly. It's actually kind of hard to make a snippet here because we didn't use complete sentences. And the first half of that thought was like 2-3 minutes ago, and I'm trying to get a 2-minute snippet for Instagram. Yeah. So what that does though, is now you have a transcript. It's so much easier for someone on your team or even you yourself when you've got that first rough, poopy draft, right? That term, you take that and then you form it into something that only takes a minute for you to deliver direct to camera. You know exactly what you're going to say. And so it's so easy to even repurpose, create a reel, create a little 1 or 2 minute Facebook video that you can turn into a Facebook ad to grow your reach with paid advertising. It's just so much easier once you get over that first video hurdle. Also, you can make the same video again, give it a different title, say all the things you wish you had said, like, but do it like in another 6 months. It's a really powerful thing to be able to redo the same things over and over and make it better over time.
Yes, I love that you brought up that piece around sometimes videos, even if you are prepped for it, even if you've practiced, when you do it, it really is a crappy rough draft. That's what I view. Giving talks, giving presentations, doing videos, I never view them as a final product. I view it as my next draft. And I think exactly what you said there is sometimes just getting the transcript out so you can look at it and then go, okay, how could I have said that better? That insight, you can't get that unless you would have hit record on the video. So I love that piece, like brilliant.
Yeah. And, you know, I understand the energy that you get from a live, but the thing is, lives are not super fun to rewatch because they are done with the current audience in mind. And so watching someone say, yeah, so-and-so, like you said, that totally get that. You don't get the same, because you feel like you're missing out. Like, well, I can't see what they said. Even if you repeat the exact comment that the person said, there's still a loss there. Versus when you deliver something direct to camera, you are talking to them, especially you make sure that you use the singular. So you're looking at the camera, you're looking at each other in your eye, like eye to eye, making that eye contact. And you're saying, yeah, you really should consider doing this because it will help improve your life so much. You create that level of connection that where there's a little bit of disconnect if you're just repurposing a live video. So what I recommend is you do both. So if you did your live video, you've done it once, now you just take your talking points and deliver it direct to camera. Yes. Or you deliver it direct to camera and then you do a live where you're talking about, you know, I just made this video yesterday and, you know, this is what I was talking about. Did you guys watch it? What do you think? And so you get the best of both worlds and you're repurposing your content.
Yeah. And with that piece is the repetition of it. I think it's right up in my wheelhouse, right? We tell people the more that you speak, especially about the same topic, the better you'll get at articulating that topic, which I would imagine is your area of expertise. So you should get better speaking at it. So that repetition, it's not like the thing about YouTube, when you said, do the same video over again, just re-record it and call it something different. That is brilliant. I think a lot of times we get caught up thinking, well, I already talked about hand gestures. So they already got that video. They don't need that. There's so many different ways that you can talk about it. And I would imagine different ways that people search for it. So how do you decide what pieces of content to redo like that? If you have one topic, how do you decide to circle back and talk about it again?
Well, so first of all, certain topics are just cyclical, right? So we always do, for example, habits things at the beginning of the year, and we talk about wealth building. So it's going to be financial habits for you to implement in your life this year. And I also think that repetition, like you were saying, is actually the key to helping people master things.
Agreed.
We forget about the basics and we just need reminders about, hey, remember, you need to drink water. Like how many of us are actually drinking our 8 ounces of water, 8-ounce glasses of water a day and getting our 8 hours of sleep? How often do we need reminders to do those things? And those are things that we've been trying to do our whole thinking lives, right? Or flossing, right? So I just think of it as regular maintenance, reminding our people do these things, but you make it fresh by talking about what's going on in the world right now. Or, you know, hopefully you're always learning as an entrepreneur. So you've got some new insights to add into it. So I can do generally how to create a debt payoff plan that works. And then I could do another video that's about creating a debt payoff plan that works, but adding in more of the mindset work or adding in some objections or questions that people had when I created that first video, making it even better and taking a slightly different micro angle. So instead of 7 steps to help you pay off debt, it could be 5 things that are stopping you from paying off debt, 3 habits that you want to start now if you want to pay off debt. Why paying off debt actually doesn't matter, you know, to take a counterpoint to that. So there are lots of ways that you can tackle the same topics but just changing it a little bit and adding a bit more information to help people really internalize it, and also to help the people who didn't quite get it the way you explained it the first time.
Yeah, I love that. Man, it just rolls right off your tongue, like the examples of titling things, which goes to show you do this. You've been doing this for a while, right? I think somebody hearing that going, oh my gosh, I need to rewind and write those down because all of those were good titles. So I want to hit on that. Like we're going to geek out on that one thing for a moment. What was the process of you getting good titling things? I know that's such a funny question, but that is, I think, something that trips up a lot of people are like, what do I call the thing? And I think that might even prevent people from hitting record because they don't actually know, one, what's the topic, and two, what the heck would they call it?
Yeah. So what's funny is I actually think that I'm not great at coming up with titles, because I see other people's titles and I'm like, oh, that's so clever. How did you think of these things? And so the answer is I really just look at what other people are doing. This is not something that comes natural to me. Marketing is not something that comes natural to me. I will not be the person that originates a new form of marketing, like a new marketing strategy. That is not me. But what I do well is just looking at everything that is out there, pulling in the things that call to me and looking at why they call to me and finding the patterns. So I love collecting headlines and looking at what's consistent, and then working off of templates to then create your content. And it's also what people are used to, right? So if we want to get too fancy, it will confuse people. Like, what is that even about?
Yeah.
But BuzzFeed style articles, like, you won't believe what he did next. We're we're all used to those things. So we all anticipate that we're going to get some fun, interesting plot twist if we click on that particular article. So I think there's nothing wrong with walking the paths that have been, blazed by other people and just figuring out, well, what's a different spin that I can use in my particular niche? And that comes from understanding your people too.
I agree. I am so glad I asked that question because the fact that you just laid out a roadmap for other people to get better at something. I think we take for granted sometimes where when we do things, people are like, oh, you're so naturally good at that. And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. No, let's be clear here. It's not that I'm good at it. It's just, here's what I do to get better. So I'm glad that side note, go back and listen to that the last minute. You just gave a roadmap of exactly how somebody can get content ideas or name their stuff, whether it's a blog post or a YouTube title. Let's talk a little bit about Tasha, about speaking. So I know when we met, you and I met, I think officially at Entrepreneur Experience, year and a half, a year, whatever it was, fall
2019.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was a fun event. Fun note, Tasha and I stayed up really late eating ice cream together at the hotel on the very last night, and we instantly bonded over sweet treats and a Uber ride. And we knew we were going to become friends, and we've stayed in contact since. When I met you, I knew hands down, you're an exceptional communicator. And as somebody professionally who speaks, you're a lawyer, or you've been a lawyer for your career, that articulation is a really strong suit. Has speaking always come natural for you? Talk a little bit about how you use your voice professionally and how that's evolved for you as an entrepreneur.
I would say that it has not, because again, I'm not someone that in the past has enjoyed being the center of attention. That is something that I am working on. This tendency to not want to be seen. And that's one of the things that drew me to law, because you could be truly excellent at the work that you do and, up there in your field, but notoriety is not a thing that happens to lawyers, right? But it is a thing that happens when you have a large audience of people. So I would say that, being a lawyer has really helped me with clarity, but trying to be an engaging speaker for video has really changed how I communicate. And working with you has really changed how I communicate. Like, I used to be very RBF, so just sitting there with sort of like a deadpan look, because I didn't realize how it came across in video. I mean, I'm naturally a person that does emote in real life, but there's something about looking at a camera that you have to learn to give it more, right? To give it more of yourself and what you're feeling and give it those facial expressions. So, it's something that I'm working on. I don't think that it's something that you're ever done with, like you mentioned earlier, Heather. But one of the things that I do is I rewatch my videos. I used to do this because I was the one editing my videos, but now now that I don't edit my own videos, I will still rewatch them 2 and 3 times and look at how I came across, look at my word choices, and really think about, well, how would I like to say that next time? Because the truth is we do repeat ourselves over and over as business owners, as online marketers. So I'm always on a quest to improve my communication.
Yes, I love that. I think that's so important when you think about it, whether you're doing YouTube or you do podcast interviews or you show up on Instagram stories, whatever platform that looks like, we constantly should be getting better, as I stumble over my words, but getting better describing what we do, better connecting with our audiences, coming across closer to how we want to be perceived. I love that you just gave a little checklist, if you will, for how you review your videos, what you're watching for. Let's dig in on that for a moment. Talk about how that process has been for you, because I would imagine when you started reviewing your interviews, the narrative was a little bit different. So how has your resiliency and your self-confidence evolved as you go back and watch your videos?
It's funny. I got used to sitting down with someone else and recording, because for a long time it was me and Joseph. Both of us were working full time. This was our thing that we were doing. And yeah, it was largely me driving it because Joseph is not entrepreneurial in spirit, right? He's just someone that luckily can roll with my crazy, right? So he was incredibly supportive about it. But then when I quit my job and I was doing it full time, he's like, all right, you got this, it's yours. And so then I was faced with having to do this by myself. So which meant there's no time for me to sit here and think about what I'm going to say next because someone else is speaking. I need to speak. And then I need to speak again. So that has been a challenge, learning how to do that. And it's caused me having to do that and feeling nervous about it has added in filler language in what I say. So I'll find myself saying, you knows, or ums, or rights to give myself time to think, right? Think of the next thing instead of just letting silence be there. So that's something that I am learning how to do. But in the beginning, it was just about how do we get this content across, especially personal finance content that can be so nuanced, and just the wrong word can change the whole meaning of what we just said. And so that was what we would think about in the beginning. But now I think more about the marketing and the marketing messages and what our brand stands for, and to make sure that we're communicating in a way that communicates our brand message, that communicates our marketing message, that is increasing retention and engagement on the video, which is a whole different level of things that we're trying to fit in now.
Yeah. Okay. That piece there of like when you first getting started, like what you focus on, it drastically changes in just a matter of weeks or months. I think about this random example. Anyone who's listening most likely has an email list and they're growing their email list. Think back to when you were like, how the heck do I start an email list? And you're Googling like email service providers. Who do I use? Like, what's a form? Like figuring out those things of how clunky and weird it feels. And then fast forward, even just a matter of weeks or months, you don't think twice about those things when you write your weekly newsletter. I think the same thing happens with what you're talking about, whether it's learning the ins and outs of recording video or editing video or watching yourself on video. Just know it's drastically going to be different in a matter of weeks or months. So I think, did you find, specifically on the filler words, I found that editing my own videos was the best way to be hyper aware of filler words in the moment. Did that help with you on getting rid of those?
Really just watching them back, because I didn't edit out the filler words. I would leave them in.
Me too.
So even when I would have my editor do it. So for me, just watching it back, and it is a work in progress because I'm only 1 year into doing so many solo videos, and it was the COVID year. So we're making a lot fewer videos than we used to. So we used to make 3 a week, and now it's down to 1 a week. And I'm trying to get it back up to 3 a week, but it's hard when you've got kids at home. So
Yes, yes, it is. Okay, let's do, I want to do like a fire round of give me some of your best tips and strategies for those who are like, oh, I want to know, I want to explore YouTube. So what would be a few of your best tips or insights you would give an entrepreneur listening who's thinking about venturing into YouTube, or they're on, like me, they have 96 subscribers. Please come subscribe to me on YouTube. But they're like, what do I do now? So what are some like fundamental tips or strategies you would give?
Well, I would say, let's just say that you're not on YouTube at all. Let's start from there. So you're trying to get started making videos. Make it as easy for yourself as possible to create those videos. So invest in, if you need a better computer, invest in that. Invest in an attractive looking set, like what I have going on behind me here. This is not my main YouTube set, but I tell you what, it is really nice to just be able to sit down at my desk, turn on my camera, and have a good looking setup that I can just shoot in, and I don't have to think about rearranging things. It's just set up and ready for me to shoot. Also, constantly look for ideas. Don't sit down and try to shoot a YouTube video and you didn't have any ideas to pull from. So batch your ideation, batch your outlining so that you can sit there and shoot, let's say, 2 videos at a time, and then you don't have to think about it again for maybe another week or 2, and then it's time for you to shoot 2 more, eventually getting to the point where maybe you can shoot 4, so you're only doing it once a month in order to get 1 video out a week. The other thing that I would do is just practice doing it. The truth is, you can record a whole video and no one ever has to see it. And even if you mess up, you can just say the whole thing over again. So just take that pressure off of yourself to be perfect the first time around, and just recognize that it's going to be a learning curve. And lastly, I would start YouTube, unlike myself, start YouTube with an intention. So understand your customer journey, who you're trying to attract, where you're trying to take them, so that you can start attracting those people right away. Because you don't need millions of views to have a successful business. And I can attest to the fact that having millions of views doesn't mean that it's easy for you to create $1 million business. And so the way, though, that you make every single one of those views count is that you make sure that you're making content that really pulls in your ideal person and lets them know how they can take that next step with you. So don't just give them informational content. Make sure you're talking about your programs. Make sure you're talking about your clients. Like, make sure they understand that you are a business, you have what they need, you can help them. Say it in every single video, because with YouTube, there's no going back. So you want to make sure that every single video works hard for you, so that as your channel grows and you have people that are trying to deep dive into your archives, that they will still go there, get value, and become hopefully someone that joins your email list, someone that follows you elsewhere on social, and ultimately someone that becomes a customer.
Okay. I love this piece, especially that you're hitting on, talk about your programs and your things. I think so many people shy away from it because they don't want to be pushy, but it's kind of expected because you have that one moment. Can you just touch on briefly the idea of YouTube being the platform that's a search engine versus Facebook videos get down, like you don't see those years later unless it goes viral for some reason and people are sharing a random baby video from 3 years ago. But the video on YouTube actually works for you for a long time. Talk about that just briefly.
Yeah, video on YouTube can really be evergreen. I don't know what it is about the people who watch YouTube videos, but one thing that I find is they like to go deep in the archives. They are going through all of your content, and then they'll follow you over to wherever else you are. So your website, your Instagram. I have no doubt in my mind that my Instagram following is as large as it is because I have said on enough of my videos, hey, are you following us over on Instagram? Because I only have 300, maybe, I think I'm up to 300 posts on Instagram, and I have 26,000 followers on Instagram. It's definitely from YouTube. So YouTube is just so powerful when it comes to evergreen. And yes, it is a search engine, and so it shows up on Google when you search, for sure, and your videos will show up when people search for things on YouTube. But I think the thing that people truly underestimate on YouTube is the way that it functions. for YouTube to be successful, it wants to constantly serve new content to people, content that is similar to the content that they have consumed in the past. So YouTube, unlike any other platform, has an incentive to just serve you anything and everything related to that thing, regardless of when it actually happened. So when that video was created. Whereas other platforms are based on fresh content, YouTube is not based entirely on fresh content. So they will serve up your videos from 2 years, 10 years ago. How many times have you searched on YouTube and you found a video that was 5, 10 years old as one of the top things? And then your video could show up right after that video for the next thing for a person to watch. So that's why I think YouTube is so incredibly powerful when it comes to deciding where you want to start creating content.
Yes. Okay. I love this. And I think this piece of we're creating content all the time and being mindful of how our content is going to serve our business and people in the future. That to me is the number one attractive part of YouTube, not just from a lead generation piece, but when I think about my mission to impact the world by helping entrepreneurs get braver sharing their voices, I need my message to go further for a longer period of time. So out of necessity, I know I need to be more active on YouTube. So, oh my gosh, Tasha, this was so helpful today. This is so old school. I literally have a clipboard in front of me with notes that I wrote down. So hopefully those listening did the same. Where can people connect and follow you online? We've talked about it a little bit, but specifically, where can people learn more about learning from you all about YouTube?
Right. So we have a 7-day get started quickly on YouTube challenge. So you can grab that over at onebighappylife.com/YouTube. So that is the best place to learn about YouTube, but you can find me at One Big Happy Life everywhere, including, of course, YouTube.
Perfect. Okay. I'm going to link to all of that in the show notes. Tasha, thank you so much for being here today. I'm excited to post this on YouTube so people can watch and see your beautiful set, see us in action, but also obviously hear us on the podcast. I appreciate you so much. If you were to give one last tip for entrepreneurs who are starting to get braver using their voices, what piece of encouragement or advice would you give?
Wow, I would say lean into being yourself. That is the thing that is going to call your people to you. So don't see this as see it as an opportunity to truly go deeper into who you are, figure out who you are, what you have to say, because that is what's going to help you stand out.
I love it. I totally agree. Thank you. Thank you so much, Tasha, for being here. I appreciate you. And for all of you listening, thanks again for tuning into another episode. Be sure to like this wherever you're watching this video. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you get our bonus episodes coming out in the coming weeks. And for sure, connect with us both on social. We'll see you next week.